All right. Hi there. I'm Mike Cerrone, and welcome to the Referral Mastermind Call, where we talk about getting more referrals from your past clients, friends, family, and sphere of influence, acquaintances, people that you have in your sphere. If you want to get more referrals for them, that's what we want to talk about. This is an open format mastermind where we all contribute, share, and help one another. If you have questions, you're able to ask them. If you have contributions that you would like to share with others, you're able to do that as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you think of something that you want to share, just unmute yourself and chat. And then when you're not talking, be sure to mute yourself so we don't hear the background in your conversation, and we'll get rolling. All right. So let's start off with some successes. Has anyone had any referral successes for the week? Any referral successes for the week that you would like to share? Go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us your story.
Yes.
Hey, Kevin.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Sure. A client who I started, just to give you some backstory, starting in like 2019, before we all knew there was all this pandemic stuff going to be happening and whatnot, I decided that I needed to deal with I never really kind of understood in the almost 30 years we've been doing this, about the whole getting a database and all that stuff. So I started collecting people going back from 30 years ago, drop windshield wiper fluid off at their place, and kind of engaged over this whole period, because you never know who you're going to hit, touch, or whatever. Anyway, so this week I actually met with a client who's now referred two people that, I have not spoken with her for 15 years, right? And, but, she always respected what we did and how we did it. And the extra interesting thing is that the one most recently is her cousin, and English is like his second language. So, there's an extra little something when someone, and English is her second language too. But, you can have people reach back out to you from 15 years ago if you just start working a plan of some type. And that whole business about you need to be consistent, you need to be persistent, but not in a obnoxious way. And then the other P word is you have to be patient, because this just shows that from something I started in 2019, led to 2 referrals in the last 2 months from the same person.
That is fantastic. Kevin, that is a great story. Thank you for bringing that to us. And if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you some questions, because I actually have talked to a lot of people that are in your position. They've been in the business a long time. For whatever reason, they didn't collect a database. By the way, I can be accused of that as well. A lot of us have. You got motivated for some reason and put together the database. So let's kind of walk through that. Why did you decide, after 30 years of the business, to, I better put together my database? What brought that about?
Well, first off, my son got his license his senior year of high school. And he was graduating in a couple of years, and decided that, when you start thinking about more than just yourself, but there's someone else, like if you want to ask about motivation, there's that. And I finally realized also that, after reading and listening to some things, that it isn't just because you did a good job that people are going to contact you. And the other thing that became kind of an overwhelming statistic to me is how many people have their freaking real estate license. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this whole top of mind thing. Now, this whole, you got to touch them 40. Everybody's got their own thing. For me personally, if I touch people 40 some years or 40 sometimes a year, that's not me. And they think I was like high or something. Okay. But consistently and the one thing that I did that I think cemented a lot of things, and there were other people who I would do this stuff for, and you got to be able to understand that there might be some disappointment in the whole thing, is you might end up finding out that those people still ended up using somebody else. Well, then so be it. You got to be able to accept that. But the big thing was, and it was my wife's idea, is a reconnecting thing. You know those little packs of bungee cords you can buy for like $5, $7, $9? They got a mixture of stuff. Go at Lowe's,
Sure.
Home Depot, your favorite, whatever. I took one of them, basically to all, give or take, 300 people who I thought were worth even paying attention to, maybe, and dropped them on the front door, left a little note, followed up with a note card. And that was, if nothing else, as long as, could make the connection, they could go, hey, he actually drove his ass all the way out here to do that. That's kind of cool, even from 15 years ago, And then the other follow-up from making a visit is, now, everybody needs windshield wiper fluid, but I live in Pittsburgh. So, snow, it's even more important. So, like, I can't remember exactly the time of year, but it was near when the snow was about to fall. And I went around to pretty much those same houses. What is it, like $4 to buy a thing of windshield wiper fluid? And I made another trip. And so that was basically my anchoring move, to then send out some stuff via snail mail and whatever. And so it's taking, you gotta, I kind of look at it like it was this big giant, mess of weeds in my backyard that I had to go back. I had to pull the frickin' weeds out. You got to do it, you got to till the soil, you got to fertilize it and all this other kind of stuff. And so now it looks actually as nice as my backyard that I'm looking at right now, that we finally had that done to last year. Now I see grass instead of crap. But it takes time, and it isn't just some instantaneous thing, but it does work. But I will say this, I got to tell you, for me, and I don't know that I overtly knew that I had this in me, I really enjoy doing stuff for people. I didn't really know that I liked doing that, but I didn't do it for the goal of getting people to contact me. When I started doing it, it was actually kind of nostalgic. I mean, I hadn't been past some of these places for 20 years. And so, like I said, I started it in 2019, and here we are in 2022. Little did I know that it would also be a necessary thing with the pandemic happening and all that other kind of stuff. So there you go.
That's an awesome story, Kevin. I really appreciate that. I'd like to dig into that a little more again, because a lot of people are on this path, right? And just to recap, you've been in the business for 30 some years. You didn't do anything with your past clients. You were always out there hunting. Again, that was my problem too. And now you finally decide to turn around and capitalize on this database that you have. You've got your son coming into the business. That was one of the catalysts for you. And I will say one thing. Go ahead.
Just before, there were some things that I did do, but it was like 4 times a year, maybe 3. I would send out a sports magnet calendar kind of thing. All right.
Uh-huh.
But nothing in any of this depth, this stuff like whatever the Keller guy wrote.
Right. The millionaire real estate agent, the red book.
Right. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? But I found out that it really matters. And another thing I did do in the early 2000s, I had a couple, like 4 seasons in a row. We treated everybody who was able to come to a Pittsburgh Pirate baseball game. But from, I'd say 2006 on until 19, say for, a little
13 years.
Yeah, I mean, say for sending out the calendars that my wife said, why do you send those out? People don't care about those things. But, it helped a little bit. But I really kind of delved into it starting 2019 and made it at least, like 8 to 10 to 12 touches a year. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
8 to 10 to 12. Good. Yeah, so the National Association of Realtors did a study years ago. I think it's a very interesting one. Basically, they went out and they interviewed home buyers and home sellers. It was a year or so after their transaction. They said, hey, what did you think about your transaction? They said, I loved it. What do you think about your agent? 86% of them said the agent was awesome. They said, would you use them again? Yes. Again, here's the 86. 86% said, yes, we would use them again. Follow-up question. What's the name of your agent? Only 11% could say the name of their agent. Isn't that sad after a year? So what was the disconnect? Whose fault was it that the homeowner or this buyer or seller this past client couldn't remember the name of their agent.
Yeah, but you got to do it in a non-pain in the ass way. Okay.
Yeah. So let's tell us about what you have come up with. You said you're touching 8 to 12 times a year. You're a little nervous about going out too many times. I think you said 40 in the beginning. What have you come up with as your solution?
Well, for me, and it's got to be, first of all, just as a foundational thing, it does have to be you. Okay. There isn't there's a certain foundation that you can follow of being in more contact, but it needs to seem like it's coming from you. And I have to tell you, it really has to be genuine. They really have to try and get over feeling that it's for any type of expectation of getting anything back. Okay. I mean, there is the reason that you're doing it is for that. It isn't like you're just grabbing strangers off the street and sending them stuff because you got nothing better to do. There is a purpose to it. And I can't really describe how you feel that internally or how it comes about. I can just say that I did cross that threshold. But can I mention branded stuff? Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Mention
okay.
anything you want. This is an open.
All right. I ran into this thing a little over under a year ago. It's called Reminder Media. They're out of Philadelphia. You ever heard of them?
Say that again.
Reminder Media.
I've heard the name. Yep.
Okay, you go check them out. All right. Well, whoever, because
I think they do a magazine. Is that right?
Well, they do 4 magazines. Okay, and they also have more stuff of. They do postcards. So I started with the magazine. The magazine looks really good. Okay, and there are 4 different ones, and they also have an online version that you can do too. And I also look at this as, for all the stuff that I wish I've been doing this for the last 30 some years. Some of the people that will say I'm piling on and sending them stuff, even though I haven't talked to them in 20 years or whatever. In a way, I feel like this expenditure that I'm doing now is making up for what I should have been spending 25, 30 years ago and doing it this way, for all that time. But the one thing for me, again, this is about tweaking things. The Reminder Media magazine, go check it out. Their promotional thing is to make sure you got your photograph on the front. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it's okay. There's a photo of me on like the inside cover because it is supposed to remind the people about you. But my face on the front, that's not me. So, and it just, so that's one little editorializing thing I did right there. But people like it. I've even had people send me notes. Hey, thank you for sending that magazine. That's really cool. Really appreciate it. And it's also meant to be an introductory thing. And you can do it, I think, once every 3 months or once every, or 6 times a year. And then they also have postcards, and they kind of got that going too. Because it's sort of an automatic thing. It's not cheap, but it's not really expensive either. It depends on how much you want to invest in everything. And I'm still going through, and also at least 3 times a year, instead of this whole monthly newsletter thing, because, I get monthly newsletters from these, different agents because I signed up for whatever. And basically you don't read it because it's funny how I'll see, like, I get the same newsletter from 4 different agents because it's all company branded and it's whatever. But I make it a point to individually write a letter. And when I mail it out in our good quality. It's on my letterhead, our company letterhead. It's like nice, I think it's Strathmore paper, with a watermark. And it's in like an envelope. Like, it looks like it's kind of important. And it's more of a quality, not quantity kind of thing. And I'll send that out maybe 3 times a year. And when I started doing that, I also made sure that I put in, go out to different companies that people who I know who are either friends with or have their own business. Like, one guy has a pool table business. And so I asked him, hey, will you give a 15% discount? So I put that coupon in there so that when people know when they open it up, even if there's not something in there that month, there might be. It's kind of like Cracker Jack,
Right. Yeah.
So, and it's sort of, you got to keep, and I'm adding more, but it's stuff that's reflective of me. I don't send seeds, by the way, because I know sending seeds, well, some people do that, and maybe that's them. But I just kind of, it's become Very, but Reminder Media has a good product.
So
in
how
my
often
opinion.
are you sending out the magazine? And it sounds like you're sending out that personal letter 3 times a year. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to get
and
an idea of your annual plan.
the magazine, well, it's still growing and being tweaked, but the magazine goes out 6 times a year. I haven't done a full year yet, and they also have a 12-month postcard thing, so that's going out. So that's a total of 18. And so if you add 3 of those letters, what's that, like
21?
21? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that fits about right, I think.
That's about twice a month on average. Yeah.
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 And, you know, and we're planning on, actually our 25th anniversary was during COVID. So we're looking to actually have an event, because the event thing is I think is an important thing, mini events and stuff like that. We're going to try and roll into everything. But if it works out, that we're able to time it sometime in the fall, we're going to have our 25th anniversary. That's been, and I kind of played off of that. That's kind of where the thing started in 2019 too, was knowing our 25th anniversary was coming up. It would be a logical reason to reach out to everybody that hasn't heard from me in the last 10, 12, 15 years. But you can make up whatever anniversary you want. I mean, just make sure it's true. If it's your 19th anniversary or whatever, if you haven't gotten in contact with anybody. But that was like the logical hook. And it isn't like I said, hey, my son's graduating, I want to reach out to you. We got a 25th anniversary thing coming up, kind of thing. So we're planning on, if we can, toward the end of the year, having a big event at probably the zoo here, because who doesn't like the zoo? And
Right.
it's the lowest, some people don't like baseball, and some people don't like this or don't like that. But the whole zoo thing is kid friendly, it's family friendly. There's really no one that you're, saying, or, eliminating, I guess, is the
Right.
best way to put it.
Well, it sounds like most of your reach out so far have been through mail, through old snail mail, direct mail.
Yeah.
And then now you're going to add this event, and that's going to be fun. And it sounds like it's a cool idea. The nice thing about events, by the way, is the invitation. So be sure to invite.
Oh yeah, I watched your thing about that.
Yeah. It's not everybody's going to respond, and not everybody's going to go, but everybody's going to appreciate that you invited them. And that's the power of the event. So how many people do you have on your list? Did you say 300?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, so you got past clients and Spear in there, and it's about 300?
Yeah.
And do they pass the SOI test? If you bumped into them in the grocery store, running down the aisle, you'd recognize them, they'd recognize you, you could each strike up a conversation together?
For the most part.
Okay, cool. So that's a good list. That's a solid list. And you've been doing this for a couple of years. You've been building it up. What kind of results have you received as far as referrals? You mentioned you had 2 in the last month or so from the same gal. What else has happened over the last 2 years as you've been building this up as far as referrals?
Last year was, I guess, our best year. I don't like to get into dollar figures publicly or anything like that, but
I like to talk units. So
yeah, well, I mean, last year maybe 40, and I, even through this whole process of digging into doing the whole database thing and whatnot, is where I started fully understanding these concepts of, it's not, most of the business prior to that had been word of mouth. But word of mouth is different than referral/introduction. Word of mouth is just, it's more like happenstance in a way, right? It's not, you're not planning it. And so, and along with my son's help, we're kind of digging into strategizing about how the whole thing works, as opposed to it just kind of come what may, and timing when things go out. But I have to stress one thing, and I don't want to hog up if anybody else wants to talk about anything, but I have to stress, you really do kind of have to feel it in here, like you're doing it. It's kind of like what Zig Ziglar says. I don't remember what the exact quote is, but you give you do everything you can for whomever, and you get whatever back, or whatever in the world that is. But if you don't feel some level of sincerity in what you're doing, A, people will notice that, and B, through sort of dry periods, you won't feel like doing it unless you are doing it because actually there's some element within what you're doing that you just enjoy, for lack of a better way of putting it, making somebody's day and being nice to somebody. If there's always like, or even some large percentage of your rationale behind doing it in that you're only doing it because you're going to get something, then it's going to all fall flat on its face, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. You have to give before you get. That's an old philosophy. The Zig Ziglar one, maybe it might be if you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. But now that's kind of transactional. You're saying just put it all out there in goodwill. But, you know, you're doing this for a purpose. You are doing it for a business purpose. What you're saying, though, is that you want to be open and free about it, not expect immediate return. Don't crunch the numbers too hard on it. Know that it's all going to all work out, and that it's kind of fun to give, right? It's fun to give back and to contribute to people and help them out and connect with them. Is that what I'm hearing? Am I getting that right?
Yeah. If you don't have that element within you of something about you just kind of enjoy doing it, then it just, in my opinion, it's not going to work because you'll end up getting. Because if it's always about getting something, you're not always going to get something. In fact, there are going to be periods of time when there's nothing coming in, whatever. And so, if there's no sustainability of doing things by introduction. I kind of like that as opposed to the word referral, because referral is kind of like this esoteric word to a lot of people, you know. Whereas when you say, "Hey, can you introduce me to somebody?" Everybody knows what the heck introducing somebody means, or at least it's more commonly understood connotation as opposed to the word referral.
Now, Kevin, did I understand you correctly earlier? Say that last year you had a great year, and I think, did you say you had 40 referral closings last year? Did I get that right, or did I misunderstand?
Yeah, it's a guesstimate, but year after year after year, our business has basically always been 90%. Previously, we'll call it word of mouth. And so if you want to transition that, I'll continue to use the word introduction. But yeah, it was around 35 to 40 last year.
Basically a database of about 300. So I like to go to the mathematics because it creates a little logic around it. And so you basically have more than 10%, your database has returned more than 10% to you in a closed referral over the year. 10% would be 30 or 40. So let's say you're around 13.5% or so. That's really awesome. Now, did you see a change, or did you see an uptick when you started intentionally going out and keeping yourself in front of people as opposed to the referrals you had before? So for instance, back in 2018 or 2017, were you also getting 40 closed referrals, or has that gone up since you've been more intentional?
No. It's kind of been steady as she goes. The thing for me about being intentional about it is, like I said, I'm looking at maybe it blossoming, for lack of a better way of putting it, maybe next year or the year after that. Not so much about what year we're in, but doing it and digging into an understanding that there is a cause and effect. Whereas in the previous 20 some years, say for, like I said, you know, sending out a Pittsburgh Pirate and a Pittsburgh Steeler and a Pittsburgh Penguin calendar with the schedule on it. And for like 3 or 4 years, having one, you know, we'll take you to a Pirate game thing, you know, that was pretty much it. And it was really kind of digging in and understanding this difference between word of mouth, because that's what it always was, is word of mouth, but no real like work at it. Not only work like it's a pain in the can, I mean, there's effort involved in doing this in a systematic way. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily led to much of an uptick from a results standpoint. What it has done is it helped me to better understand that there can be a cause and effect relationship in this activity. And that in part is driven by, you know, like I said, since my son has gotten more involved. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's do this. We kind of got you on a hot seat, which is kind of fun. Thank you for doing this. The last thing I'd like to ask you is simply this. What is you're building out this referral business more and expanding it, formalizing it more, bringing your son in. What can we help you with is in the mastermind? Did you have questions? If you run into roadblocks, if you had a challenge, is there anything that you would like the group to kind of think about that might help you get a little further ahead in this project that you're working on, which is developing this referral database and making it work better?
I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. See, there I am, I'm giving, right? Not necessarily looking to get anything. I guess the only thing, and I think I've sort of overcome this, is the whole have to I try to I guess what I'll say is this: I try to treat everybody equally to a certain extent. Okay, from the standpoint of the database thing. So I've never. While I do have some people that I just talk to more because we're just personally get along better than other people. I guess the whole ranking of things, I've kind of had, I don't know if trouble's the right word with. It's just, I don't want anybody to necessarily feel that they're left in or included in because they're special, or left out because they're not. Because I mean, one of the best, and at that time it was word of mouth referrals that I ever got was from somebody who was, and I don't say this in a denigrating way, a blue collar worker, a masonry worker who ended up referring. It turns out, because you never know who somebody's related to or who they run into. He referred his brother who bought like a $600,000 place because his brother happened to be a doctor, So I guess if there's any question is to better understand how to rank people, because I understand there's a certain purpose behind it. But for me, it's kind of hard to not treat everybody on some level as kind of the same.
Sure.
Is that a question?
That is a question, and I appreciate it. The egalitarian, this idea that everybody would be even, you're kind of playing on that, and then you're looking at a ranking. We're going to come right back to that. Before I get into that, I just have a fast question for you. Have you ever taken the DISC personality test, the DISC? Do you know how you score?
No, I've not.
Okay,
I know what it is, but I have not. No.
That's okay, no problem. Let's do this. Let's break into the ranking. We're going to open it up to other people that contribute as well, or ask questions here. This is fun, by the way. Thank you for doing this. You said you don't want to hog the spotlight or anything, but actually you're helping contribute to people thinking about this and this issue, especially when you haven't kept up and you want to step up your game, let's say, on your PCSOI. As far as rankings, A, B, C, D is a very common situation that you hear, right? And the way people break that out is different. I've actually been looking at that recently and looking back at some other ways that people have been doing it. Here's a common way that works really well. Let's start at the bottom, okay, and work our way up because it might make a little more sense. D is somebody who's dead to you. Something didn't work out. They either literally died or you had a bad relationship. You don't want to work with them anymore. You actually need that in your database. You don't think there's going to be many, and hopefully there aren't, but there are going to be a few. But you don't want to delete it. You don't want to delete that record. You want to keep it to remind yourself of what happened or whatever was going on with that relationship, and maybe it can be revived. But that's D. C, let's go up to C. C are people in your database that you don't know whether they would either work with you, i.e. hire you, or refer you. Okay, that's a C. They don't know if they have not hired you or referred you. You're not sure whether they will. You kind of think they might, but that's a C. Okay, you're not going to spend as much time with them as you will these higher folks as far as proven referrers and workers with you. Well, so let's move up now. B are people who have hired you or they have referred you in the past. And more specifically, they've hired or referred you in the last more than a year ago. So it's 13 months or more ago.
Mhm.
They've proven that they like you enough that they will hire you or they will refer you. It's just that recently they haven't done it. But they're a pretty strong group, and you want to spend more time with them, more effort with them, because they are supporters of your business. The next group up is the A's. These folks have either hired you or referred you within the last 12 months. So within the last year, they've done activity with you. Again, either had you help them buy or sell a home or referred somebody who did. That's a fantastic group. They're stronger than the B's because of the concept of recency. If somebody's doing something with you in the recent past, they're more likely to do it again right away. So you want to spend even more time with those folks, give them a little more effort. And now we go to your double A's. I've actually created the double A category for people once they get rolling on this thing. Double A category is this. In the last 12 months, these people have done two things with you. They've either hired twice, referred twice, or done one of each or more, right? They've done two activities with you or more. By the way, this is going to be a very small group. Just talked to a guy, it was 11 people in his group that met that double A standard. And it's a small group, but I mean, these people are massive advocates for your business. You want to make sure that you acknowledge them, appreciate them, take them to dinner, go to lunch, do extra special stuff with them because they've proven that they want to support you and your business. You might as well support them. Ask them if you can help refer business to them. Ask how you can help them in their business. These don't have to be one-way streets. These can be multiple ways. So that's the idea of the ABCD with the double A at the top. And the way that some people have outlined it. Have you heard of that idea, thought about that idea? What's your impressions?
Me? Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's a piece of me, I'll mention the acronym RESPA. Okay.
Sure.
In that I don't ever, so that's part of it too. I don't necessarily want there to ever come across some kind of nexus of you're doing this like a quid pro quo kind of thing. And I
Sure.
that's me. Okay. I'm not saying whoever does whatever that they are doing that, but again, that's me. And it also sort of does kind of dovetail with like the person who just referred two people in the last 2 months. I mean, I hadn't spoken with her in 15 years,
Sure.
So, and getting back to laying the whole foundation kind of thing, there still is the idea of quote unquote asking for business and all that other kind of stuff. I'm still kind of working through because with all of any of this that any of us do about any of this, from a relationship standpoint, it really does have to be you. And it has to come from who you are. I mean, you can get ideas from different people. Like I've watched a lot of your stuff and it's very informative and it's been very helpful. And I really appreciate a lot of the different videos and people that you interview and whatnot. And I get bits and pieces. And, I guess I have been told by some people I kind of have to do things my way, which drives my wife crazy. But
Sure. Yeah.
It's taking bits and pieces and just trying to kind of figure out kind of Kevin Brown's way of doing everything in this whole, working by, through your sphere of influence, like the whole cold calling thing, not knocking anybody that does it. Absolutely. That's not me. I couldn't do that.
Sure.
I mean, unless, it's the only way I could ever make a living ever for doing any kind of anything in the old never say never. But, so, but I'd rather, there's just a piece of me that wants to, on some level, treat everybody naturally the same. I mean, there are people that I don't send Father's Day gifts to because I really don't know them that well, but they're still in my database. I still respect the job that I did. Or sent like Mother's Day gifts. So I do have people, I just know them better. But it's not so much because they have referred more people or not. It's more I kind of know them better. I guess the whole base about what I'm trying to say in all of this is it really is about some level of personal connection that you have. And if I'm going to grade anybody that way, it's going to be what level of connection I have with them as I'm going to process the whole D, C, B, A, and double A, is what kind of relationship do I have with them versus how much business they send to me, kind of thing.
Sure.
That's the way I kind of do it. And it works out my way, you know?
It has, definitely. Let's throw that out there. That unquestionably, you need to design your business around you for longevity, as you've mentioned, and comfort with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you have, and you should continue to do so. You look at these models, you see if they work. If they do, great, you implement them. If they don't, that's fine. Or see if you can make a twist on it. Maybe your ABCD comes down to how close of a relationship you have with them. Figure out a way to define that. You don't even need that many letters. Maybe it's 1 or 2 letters. Maybe it's 7 letters. It's whatever works for you in your situation. Les, I'm trying to remember Les's last name. It's eluding me. But one of the top agents, he has a top 25 list. And I asked him, how do people get in your top 25 list? He said, Mike, these are the people that I feel the closest with. These are the people that if I break down, my car breaks down on the highway, I can call them, they will come out and help me, and vice versa. It's the relationship, not the business. So you can absolutely rank your list any way you want. The only idea or the reason for ranking the list is if you are going to have, let's say you only have, let's say you start to make phone calls out to reach out to talk to people to say, hey, how you doing? Is there anything I can do for you? Like at the beginning of COVID. You're going to call up and check on people. You might have a ranking system to say, I'm going to start with my A's and go down to my C's because I only have so much time today to make calls. That might be an example of why you might want to have a ranking system. But you don't need to. You can keep them all in one group. Just make sure that you keep your list cleared out. You were talking about weeds in your garden earlier. Make sure that it's a nice, clean list and that you're not dumping a lot of people in there and you end up with a list of 3,000 people you don't know. You've got a list of 300 that you do. Pretty cool stuff. Let me answer real fast, though. You mentioned RESPA. RESPA, I'm not a lawyer, never been one, don't pretend to be one. But my understanding of RESPA, the issue that you're bringing up is you can't have tit for tat. You can't say, hey, if you give me a closing, I'll give you something in return. And it comes down to that closing. And I completely agree with you on that. You've got to be careful about that. However, you can put people in categories and you're just randomly doing stuff that you do to this whole group all the time. It's no longer a connection between they had a closing and you got something. So I understand where you're going. I don't agree with you have a connection, you have a closing, you immediately hand somebody something. That is a RESPA violation. That is a problem. You want to stay away from that. It's just the idea of ranking people as a group and as to what kind of reach outs you're going to do to these folks over time. So, but that's good. You have to wrestle with that and make sure you're very comfortable with it. Thank you for bringing it up. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is just ask the group that we have here if they've been listening to us for a while. They were excited about what you have to present. Let's just ask them if they have any questions for you, because you've had some success here with repeating referrals, and see what they come up with. What do you think? Does that be okay?
Sure.
All right, cool. So if anyone has any questions for Kevin about what he's described to us, his model, either a question or a recommendation, feel free to unmute yourself and chat with us. Any questions for Kevin and what he's doing or what he wants to accomplish, how it may connect with what you're doing and how you're trying to put your business together? If you have anything there, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and join our conversation. We have a shy group, Kevin.
Or maybe it wasn't that exciting.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I enjoyed it. I really appreciate you stepping up and sharing what you've been doing, what you're doing now, how you're bringing it together, how you just had this recent success. Thank you so much for being willing to put yourself on the hot seat with me and chat.
Sure.
Kevin, is there anything that you would like to leave us with before we see what else anybody else wants to talk about?
No. I'm good. Didn't expect to talk this much, but I'm glad to do it.
I do really appreciate it, Kevin.
Sure.
Thank you so much. All right, well, let's do this. Let's open up. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, issues you'd like to say about repeat and referrals from your past clients and sphere of influence? Well, Kevin, we must have touched all the bases today.
Okay.
Let's wrap up our mastermind for today. And again, I really appreciate you coming in and contributing, and everybody for being here. I hope you gained something out of this. And we'll do the mastermind again next week. Same time, same place. Hope you all join us, and take care. Thanks all.
Bye.
All right, take care.